ask Aaron Sexton, the public relations, her title is long and distinguished, so I will let her introduce herself and the folks that she has brought up. This is Aaron, who we've been as I've been now for the last 12 months in meetings and discussions, so with that, go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Erin Sexton with Mayo Clinic, the Mayo Clinic Health System. And with me today, I have Chris Johnson and Dr. Bagra, who are going to be presenting and providing an update to the board on recent activities with Mayo Clinic Health System in Austin and Albert Lea.
Good morning, Commissioners. Glad to be here. Appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to present before you today. I am Sumit Bagra, endocrinology by training. A little bit about me, I grew up in India and I moved to the Mayo Clinic for my training. Shortly after training, I was fortunate enough to start my practice in the Albert Lea, Austin area, and I've been here for the past 10 years since then. I also serve as the medical director for both facilities. With me here today is Chris Johnson, the associate administrator, who partners with Dr. Mark Shody. We also have Eric Crockett, who's the regional chair for administration with us today, who partners with Dr. Annie Sadasti. Dr. Mark Shody could not be here with us today because he had a full surgical schedule when the invitation was extended to us. So today we'd like to cover the following key updates on provider recruitment, facilities, and increased community engagement and how we move forward in time, partnering with the communities. I'll be honest, there is angst and confusion about the future of healthcare and what role Mayo Clinic Health System might play in that future in the Freeborn County. I want to emphasize that we remain committed to providing high-quality care in Freeborn County and to clearly share that vision with you and the broader community going forward in time. I also wanted to emphasize we are open 24/7 and that the changes being discussed are designed so we can ensure to provide high-quality services to the region going forward in time. Regarding provider recruitment, we all know it is difficult to recruit providers to rural areas. That is not just something that's happening in Freeborn County or southeastern Minnesota, it's a national problem. By 2030, we expect to have 50,000 physician shortfall in the country. Physicians, as they train, are faced with crippling amounts of debt. And as they make decisions about where to practice and what to practice, oftentimes they choose urban settings and higher paying specialties for their career goals. Mayo Clinic Health System faced those challenges as well. And I would share that by offering sign-on bonuses, excellent salary and benefits, along with relocation assistance and providing help for spouses to find employment, we've been able to find 22 new providers to join us year to date. Of them, 16 will either have sole or shared responsibility in Albert Lea. So 11 will practice in Albert Lea and Austin area, 6 in Austin alone, and 5 in Albert Lea alone. We also hired 3 new pediatricians to the Albert Lea practice. As you might recall, the pediatricians were down to just 1 pediatrician a year or 2 ago. It takes approximately 1 to 3 years to find a provider depending on their specialty. Some of the surgical and OBGYN fields could be empty for 3 years before we find the right person to fill that spot. We are also increasing staff in the urgent care, express cares to offer same-day appointments. Regarding the facilities update, Mayo Clinic Health System has been making significant investments in Albert Lea and Austin communities both. I'll start with the Albert Lea facility. We installed a state-of-the-art MRI CT scanner at a cost of about $3 million. This MRI CT is the same equipment you will find in Rochester as well. It minimizes the radiation exposure to our patients. Radiation exposure with imaging has been shown to cause up to 5 to 10% of all new cancers. So by cutting back the radiation cost, it is actually safe for our patients, and the imaging quality is excellent as well, avoiding the need to redo some of the testing that we historically had to do when people went to Rochester. The Albert Lea Cancer Center, I think, is unparalleled in a facility this size. It is run by Mayo Clinic oncologists, radiation oncologists. We recently remodeled it to enhance the comfort and privacy for our patients. I would like to acknowledge and thank the Navy Foundation for the contribution as well. With their contribution, the overall investment was $720,000 in the Cancer Center. We also installed a new cooling system for Albertly to make it more energy efficient. Now, cooling systems are not something that hits the headlines as a major investment. We had $2.75 million invested in the cooling tower. It is a strong statement of our commitment to keep the facilities up to date to provide room for future remodeling and expansion. We also are planning observation beds for patients who don't need to be inpatient, but need to spend more time, perhaps for closer monitoring for a day or so. Navy Foundation contributed $200,000 for this project, and 2019 we're going to have some permanent observation beds in the Albertly campus as well. The inpatient psychiatric services unit is nearing completion, and the Austin PSU, the psychiatric services unit, will be moving to Albertly late this fall. It meets a growing need in our state. We've all heard about how Minnesota is the 49th or the 50th state in the country for mental health beds. And I think this facility provides an update which meets a gap in healthcare today. The remodel for PSU was done at a cost of $2.5 million. Now, I can't share further details about the vision for the mental health center, but a mental health center of excellence is being planned, which may see investments to a tune that we've not seen before. This is being planned in consultation with the Rochester Psychiatry Department, and we may see residents and trainees coming here to complete part of their training as well. We also invested in an ambulance barn and a training facility at a cost of $2 million, not only to provide prompt emergency services to the residents here, but also to provide staff education to all the Gold Cross members regionally. This will bring people to the Albertly community to use the restaurants and the hotels that they spend a night or two trying to come up to speed with their credentialing and training. For Austin, we recently announced investment for the Family Birth Center and the inpatient hospitalization side. Now, this investment was to elaborate upon the plan that was shared last summer. It gave the number of rooms, the size of rooms, and the types of monies being invested into the Family Birth Center, and was not a new announcement per se. Could we have done better in connecting with the Board of Commissioners? I'd be frank, yes, absolutely we could have, we must, and we will going forward in time. The Family Birth Center investment serves both the Freeborn and Broward counties and the surrounding areas as well. Our hope is to provide state-of-the-art labor and delivery services to serve the region. Construction begins in 2019 with patients being seen there 2020 onwards. Our colleagues here will have handouts that provide additional information about Family Birth Center services, as well as to clarify any confusion about what types of services are available in Albertly versus Austin and both. So looking ahead, I see Albertly Austin as providing complementary services to the entire region. Both centers provide a wide range of services with a number of unique offerings. Albertly, for example, has dialysis facilities for which Austin and surrounding area patients travel to Albertly to receive that care. Albertly is perhaps the only small medical center in the state to have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber for wound care and specialty care. We also have an excellent facility for rehabilitation at the Health Reach and the Cancer Center. Now, these facilities do not exist in the Austin campus, so Albertly in that regard serves to fill the gap for Moore County residents. We regret there has been confusion about the types of services available, and we have brought a list of services available by campus. We will leave that behind and share it with the commissioners as well. We have updated our website to provide factual information. If you would search Albertly Austin Facts on the Mayo Clinic Health System website, it provides facts about what's changing, the timelines, and the types of services available at both sites. We are hosting open houses. We got our healthcare providers to the Wind Down Wednesdays. We're hosting community health talks. We're having some folks go out to the nursing home to talk about Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, showing our commitment to community outreach. We recognize that there has been a loss of trust, no doubt about it. With time, we hope to rebuild that. Mayo Clinic Health System is an integral part of the community, both as a healthcare provider, as an employer. On the behalf of our staff, we look forward to continuing to work with you to serve the region for generations to come. Thank you.
I think we're open. If you have questions, I would finish out some additions.
Questions?
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. First, I want to thank you for coming to our meeting. I'm sure your schedules are very busy. I guess the first thing was brought up, I have a question on, is the transportation. Early on, about a year ago, we had a meeting with several of your staff, and I brought up where we have transportation to Austin, the same as it would be, so it would be seamless here. We'd have shuttles running, people with doctor's appointments, or having to go to Austin on the ambulance. Who would cover that cost? And I believe Mayo said at that time that they would. Is that still, are you willing to cover the cost during the day, or actually 24/7 on transportation from Albert Lee to the Austin? Or does it have to go?
So I can
Is that part of the statement?
question. Yes, absolutely. And that's, we have a transportation subcommittee looking into those issues. So I would distinguish the medically necessary transport stay from facility to facility. A person shows up in the ER and needs to be in the hospital post the move of the inpatient services to Austin. If they get in an ambulance and go to another facility, which is part of our campus, that cost will be covered. I will let Chris Johnson talk about the transportation or commuting between one site to the other to make it to the appointments. I believe we're working with many agencies to find solutions that are creative and serve the needs of the patient.
Absolutely. So as we looked at the facilitated dialogue, and I think you're aware of the different subcommittees that are in the dialogue, one being the economic impact, working with Chad Adams in the city of Albert Lee, the administrator on transportation. I think the transportation isn't just healthcare related. We're finding that it involves individuals that are working between both communities, shopping between both communities. And so what our first step will be assessing what is that need of people going back and forth. Right now we have a lot of people traveling back and forth for outpatient visits before any of the transitions for inpatient services took place. So more to come on that.
And you want to look at this? I'll go through that. Go ahead. The hospital observation beds, are they covered by Medicare Part B, or are they covered like a normal hospital bed, or is an observation bed a different animal that someone will have to pick up the price? Again, the patient, is that my concern?
So it's unique, and it depends on what the patient presents for and how long they're in observation care. So I'm not able to give it. It's not a black and white answer. In some cases, if the patient qualifies with that observation bed, then it would be covered. But it's not in all cases, and it's really a patient-specific situation. And it wouldn't be any different than a patient put in observation right now.
Then you don't know if it would be considered an outpatient or not. Is that
It depends
correct?
on the presentation of the patient.
If it's considered an outpatient, it wouldn't be covered.
It would be covered under a different component of Medicare than an inpatient is. And that's not something we as a medical center can drive.
Even patients who currently are admitted to the hospital as observation in a facility that has a full-fledged hospital, Medicare considers that as an outpatient, non-admission patient, leading to repercussions on the compensation side. I believe the observation status was kicked in several years ago with the 2-night requirement and whatnot to cut back the overall cost of care in the country, and that's not something we drive. If patients do require inpatient care, we would make them inpatient and transfer them over to the hospital, which in this case would be Austin, or depending on the level of service, another hospital. If they are outpatient eligible, they could potentially spend time in the observation bed for a day or two in the Albert Lee facility as well. That was not part of our original plan, and that's what came about the community dialogue to see if we could potentially have some beds here. We do have temporary beds available soon.
Probably the first quarter of 2019 is what our goal is to have those available.
and then permanent beds with help from Navy Foundation, about a $200,000 investment to get those beds and other services available. We're working on how to staff it, whether it's going to be the ER staff, the nursing staff, but we are committed to maintaining those observation beds in Albertley, as opposed to the patients having to go to Austin for everything. We're not going to keep sick patients that need to be in a hospital in the observation beds as a holding strategy. It's only for the patients who otherwise would qualify to be in the observation beds. That's who those beds are for.
And how much is the observation bed? One night?
That also.
Because you said if they were going to be hospitalized, you'll ship them to the hospital. Otherwise, if they're going to be observed, you're going to go into the observation room, which probably won't qualify for Medicare. So going back to Mr. Alshon's question, how much is it?
The cost per night.
So there are specific guidelines on when a patient can be in an observation bed and when they can't be in an observation bed. And so then at the point that let's say a patient did qualify for an observation bed, and as Dr. Bagra stated, this was at the request, and it was a very good suggestion on the part of the community and the community dialogue that we put these observation beds in place. And so then as a patient would qualify for that observation bed, it will depend on the level of care that is needed, and then also which payer they're working with, whether it's Medicare, medical assistance, or commercial care. So it's very difficult to say this is exactly what it would be. I think we could probably provide some different scenarios, but understand that it would be multiple because it is very complicated.
I'll answer your question for you. In April, it was $1,200.
Oh. Any other question?
Yes.
You mentioned mental health center. So it sounds like we're going to get have some good mental health doctors here. We're going to have availability to this care. I don't know, as you may know, we are one of the few standalone mental health centers in the state of Minnesota. But we're always looking at ways to save money. We're always looking at ways to collaborate with partners. We're very glad that Mayo came here when they did. Is there a chance that we'll be able to work together in a mental health center that we could probably save a substantial amount of money? We wouldn't have to furnish the doctors, we can have access to yours. We'll be here, I understand what you're saying.
I think that's our plan, that's our vision. Chris, you want to elaborate on that?
Sure, I think we're working out the details, as Dr. Bacher said. There's certainly some exciting things to come. And the inpatient, we have inpatient and mental health, behavioral health services. So as we go through the next year planning and have worked with Tom and some of the planning and the dialogue, I think we need to better assess what some of the needs are in the communities and then also formulate some plans around that.
Could you today make a commitment on that to work with us on doing that?
Yeah.
What I don't want to have happen is everybody will leave the meeting and everybody will go their own way. And then we're putting together our health center and the administrator says, no, we're just going to work alone. That could happen, but I would like a commitment today. Just like they changed the beds to observation beds, that was great. That was needed. You said it's very complex. Well, let's make it simple. Let's just put hospital beds back. You know?
Yeah.
That's as simple as that. And I took my brain off.
Well, I would just say, as part of the facilitated dialogue, we do have one of the subgroups completely committed to behavioral health. So yes, we do have a commitment to work with the county and the city on what those resources are and how best to serve the community.
Mr. Chair, just for some information, Commissioner Delshon, Greg Davis, if you could just raise your hand. Greg is one of the managing partners for the mental health center. He was in my office last Thursday, Brian Friday. So we have Lea-Austin, the NAMI group, which is the Minnesota Mental Health Association. So we're all sitting very actively talking about exactly what you're talking about. So just so everybody understands that the county, the city, all those agencies, Cedar House, we're all at the table talking about exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. I think that probably 80 to 90% of the problem could be solved. And you said you made a mistake in communications, and I understand that, and I can accept that. What I really want from Mayo is commitment, like on the mental health center. And what I'm hearing from the public is a huge thing is babies being born in Freeborn County. And if you think about that, if you take that out of the hospital, what young family will want to come here if they can't have medical care or have their children at the local hospital? Could you tell me how many towns the size of Albert Lee or the sphere that this hospital was encompassing? Can you name another hospital in the state of Minnesota that is as large as this area that doesn't have a hospital?
You know, I don't know if it's talking about that, because I think we have to look down in the future in 5 years, what would that look like? And as we're looking at the delivery of babies, I can say that we can do a better job going forward by consolidating and having those babies in one unit. As far as being able to recruit, as Dr. Barbara said, it takes 3 years to recruit an OBGYN. And by having them have double call, I can tell you we have 2 babies in Austin this morning and 1 in Albert Lee. We have to staff 2 full teams for that. If we can consolidate, we hope to maintain those services in the region. And so it's really difficult to look backwards. I think we have to look forward.
I agree with you, but when you name another area, I just feel like we're so isolated here, or we feel like we really got the short end of the stick. Hospital beds leaving, can't have children here. We need a workforce for industry, to draw industry. Draw a hospital. Maybe you can understand that.
Commissioner Belchin, I understand your concerns. I'm also looking back at all the reports we receive on the journals and the medical management side. 80 hospitals have been closed in the last couple of years. Many hospitals that do not provide OB services at all, and that leaves a void that is, in Southern America, people are driving 150 miles to get care. I understand that the services will not be available in the zip code of Albert Lee, but pretty much like I see dialysis patients coming over to Albert Lee 3 times a week to get their care. In the small footprint of the Albert Lea-Austin community area, Mayo Clinic Health System is providing a comprehensive range of services that everybody could avail of. That's the only way I can answer your question. I do see your point about local community being left without ability to deliver children here, but it's available within a short drive at a high quality, and being able to staff it with excellent physicians and a full nursing team. We've had lots of challenges with recruiting physicians as well. Our combined census for Albert Lee and Austin area for deliveries is about 5 per day. And if you look at 1 or 2 deliveries, a new graduate from an OB program wants to be busy. They want to maintain their skills and they want to see complex cases as well. Going forward in time, and previously as well, it had become really hard to staff it with nursing staff and physicians. And therefore, this is future-proof, and this is designed to keep services available for generations to come.
I want to believe you, but as I look at Mankato, New Ulm, St. Peter, they all have hospitals, I believe. Is that correct? And they're closer together, St. Peter and Mankato are closer together than Albany and Austin. So I kind of don't buy what you're telling us. Because there's other groups, clusters of town here, 12, 15 miles away from the hospital. So what do we need to do to get that here? When do we get our baby center? When can we possibly get that? I think, isn't there 300 a year born in ours, and about approximately the same in Austin? I think that would solve 80% of the angst in the public. Because you say about trust and all that, and when you tell them you can't, we were all born in, a lot of us were born in baby hospital. When you tell us, no more babies, it's like pulling the rug out. You'd be heroes if you guys change that. That's the way.
So, Dr. Barbara, Thank you for coming. And I know that you have to get going, but one question, this board also functions as the community health board, responsible for public health. And one issue that we heard a year ago was the ICU care for the baby. But there's volumes of research about the farther a mother has to go to give birth, the higher risk of maternal mortality. So with a service area of 55,000 people here, and then you have Austin, you have 23 miles, well publicized 23 miles here, but what about the western area of this service area? You're talking about a 55-mile drive. So, and I would caution you that this is elderly Minnesota, not elderly Alabama or Mississippi. We don't want that, we expect more here.
Absolutely. This is my favorite question.
I think as we look at the population, it's really, some of the decisions have to be, and the availability of resources are driven by our current volumes. And because of the volumes that we have between the two communities, we have to look ahead and determine how we best meet the needs into the future. We can't run a hospital without a doctor that's staffing it or an OBGYN. And I can say we have had problems and struggles in some of our health system sites where we have not had OBGYN available due to recruitment. We don't want to put our communities in that position.
Once again, that is a staffing issue for you. So in May, I was telling Aaron, I attended a class, the Western Interstate Region meeting for National Association of Counties, and it was rural health care, and it was Ketchum, Idaho, and they talked about how they do recruitment, how they get people. So do you have residents that practice in Albert Lake?
In certain specialties, we do have help coming in. Psychiatry, for example, help staff the Saturday, Sunday inpatient services currently in Austin from the residents and fellows who want to moonlight over the weekend.
Because their research was, they partnered with universities, they had a residency program that was required to serve in rural areas, and they found that 30% more likely to serve in a rural area if you've been there. And then also in recruitment within the community. It's nice to hear that you talk about providing care for generations, but as I told Aaron last week, that unfortunately what's been happening is this is the wounds for this will not heal this community, in this community, for a generation. And so I guess, I know that you weren't here last time, so there was frustration here because one thing that was said last time was that one of the things for the consolidation of services was that in 2016, 15, 16, something like that, that Elderly in Austin lost $4 million. And then about 2 months later, the Rochester Post-Bulletin did a story with an independent audit that said this area made $2 million. And then Cato lost $10 million. So then the question would be, why aren't you changing things and services in Mankato, messing with things here? I think it's proximity, I think it's recruitment or staffing issues, I understand that. But, so, going back to the farther to travel, I mean, what is the contingency on that?
All the ER physicians, ERs in Rochester, ERs in Austin, Albert Lake are staffed by emergency medicine trained physicians, with few exceptions. There's some family practice folks who've done ER for 10, 15 years might still be providing service there. As part of their training, they are trained to help with situations where because of weather or something, a mother were to stop at an ER in a facility that does not have an OB center. So I'm not saying that's our plan. That is a fallback plan to be used only 1 in a million times on that sort of plan. We are creating a larger unit with more comfortable beds, great patient experience at a short distance away that provides high quality care that can be staffed. And most of the patients do have planned, C-sections or planned vaginal, not as if all is lost. There is help available in the ER to respond, which will remain open 24/7 going forward in time for generations.
The OB services are at both facilities as well, so So it's pretty close.
Let's go over to the buildings. Since, from what I'm hearing, if everything goes like you guys have planned, I'm trying to think what we can do to work together. Would you be willing to give us, since we gave, the Navy Foundation gave money to Mayo when they came here, the community's always supported the hospital from what I've seen. The buildings were given to Mayo, thinking, that this would happen. Never thought this would happen. What if we, since you can't get in baby doctor and you can't deliver, what if we brought somebody in that could, but we need some buildings? We don't need everything. Maybe a floor. Maybe there's a floor that's empty in the hospital that can utilize that. And since you don't want to do that, would you be opposed if we brought somebody in that did?
I can't answer that question. It's way above my pay grade, but certainly, there's facilitated dialogue going on, and that's an idea which, needs to be brought to the table for further discussion.
It would work if everybody could get along and not think that, that unit is making all this money, because Mayo doesn't want to do it because of financial, the way it sounds. Is that correct? Getting doctors, it's a difficulty, it's something you can't do. What if we find somebody that can? But we need a bill, we need a floor.
The reasons are not financial. From a physician's perspective who's practiced here for 10-some years, we've had a tough time recruiting specialists and surgeons. We've had to have locums come in, we've had to have Rochester staff come in. The first 1 or 2 years of my being a medical director role, we had weekly conference calls about, the ER, 60 shifts are unfilled for a month, and it was like putting out fires every day. And it's very hard to be in that situation. Chris, you want to build upon?
And I think too, as we look at, we talked about facilities, and as we talked earlier about the construction that's taking place, we're very excited about some of the changes and utilization of the facilities, how to better meet the region's needs. I think the other thing to keep in mind as you're looking at OB care, it requires a number of OBGYN physicians to be on staff, and as we've explained many times, taking call 1 in every 3 days is not feasible or desirable by physicians that are graduating right now. And so we need to, again, look down the future and meet needs in the future and plan.
Have you ever used a program where new physicians, if they go to a rural market and stay there for a certain amount of time? I think this was done with teachers years ago. There's a teacher shortage. And that the community would pick up their student loans and things like that. Is Mayo utilizing that a lot now to get physicians? Because I think that's one, many doctors come away with a huge student loan.
Mayo has that program right now. The commitment is, 7 or 10 years of being here. And not many physicians utilize that because of the 7 to 10 year commitment, whereby if they were to leave sooner than 7 years, and nobody nowadays, it's like you have 15 jobs in your career, not just one job, you joined for 30 years. I think all the loan forgiveness amount becomes taxable to them. They have to pay back taxes and whatnot, so it's available. But we probably had, I can recall 1 or 2 people who used it in the past 2 years during my tenure. But it's available.
Sounds like they need to sweeten that program.
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that, the reason that the changes were made is because there was room in both facilities, too much room in both facilities at all times, or most of the time. My understanding at the present time, we've had patients that couldn't be seen in Austin or weren't available to get into the hospital. Had to be transferred to Mayo in Rochester. And, we're only, 6 months into the, closing down the inpatient part of child relief. So where's that gonna, I guess I don't understand how we had plenty of room, or we didn't have enough patients, and now we got too many patients for one place. So how did that take place?
This moving piece is the PSU, the psychiatry center, is going to move here late fall. And then the medical surgical pediatrics floor, which is the inpatient hospital site, will be remodeled to expand to absorb some of the capacity. And that had to be done as part of a necessity because we couldn't expand it until the PSU moved out. So the domino effect, probably 6 months or so of growing pains here. We expect the facility to serve the needs of both counties and surrounding areas.
Well, I've been wanting to say this for a long time, and I'm just going to say it. Common sense tells me that if one of these two places had to cease inpatient hospital care, it certainly should have been Austin and not Albert Lea, for the simple reason of areas. Now we've got, I represent the area out here, so a lot of my constituents are the ones that have to, the majority of the travel. It's not just like going from Albert Lea to Austin. There's people that come from a long ways west. And like I said, if you draw the circles, the one that made sense was here. And I just wish somebody would be honest and tell me why that decision was made. I've got my feelings why it was made, but that's what I had to say. Because it really hurts this community. It really hurts. If either one of you were to come into Albert Lea or Austin, do you feel that having an inpatient hospital would make a difference in your decision where you were going to go?
I speak personally, I think because I've been in healthcare for a period of time, the component of the inpatient, and I'm not just saying that, would not be the determining factor. The whole realm of healthcare, and honestly what's offered as an outpatient basis and the level of care, whether it be the lab, the radiology, some of the specialty services, that's what would make the determination. And I think we're very excited to say that several of the physicians that have recently hired are living in the community of Albert Lea and are happy to live in this community.
I would also,
I gotta go along with Lynn. I mean, the people way out west and the people south, it's twice as far from them to live in Austin. If you draw a circle around Albert Lea, 30 miles, and draw one around Austin, we got a lot more people out here in the rural than you do, because you already got half of them from Austin going to Rochester already from Dexter on. So that's really not your area. Where you're gaining, Forest City and Easter and all them towns there, it's like you're dumping on them. We don't have health care unless you drive clear to Austin. Well, that's another 30, 40 miles, and if there's something majorly wrong, that time could make a big difference. And as far as the baby thing, can't you move the doctors from Austin here and have all the baby stuff here? Staffing. Well, can't you move that staff here? Because you got a bigger area out there than from here to Austin. You only got halfway to Austin from here, so that's like, what, 10, 12 miles? Halfway. And you're gaining 40, 50 that way?
studies show that childbirth is best done in a hospital where there's ICU, anesthesia, backup staff available. So to have a standalone OB separate from, regardless of which site we're talking about, to have an OB site without the backup and a hospital site without the backup, it just doesn't work towards patient safety. And to your question about patients needing to drive to Austin or another site to seek help, 95-97% of all care, cardiology, neurology, it's all in the office setting. In fact, insurance companies are asking hospitals to make sure the patients do not use the hospital as much as they have in the past by offering them post-dismissal services, having a social worker go visit, monitoring some of the heart failure patients at home with internet connected weighing scales, etc. So if the weight goes up by 3 or 4 pounds in a 2-day period, it alerts the nurse who can then talk to the patient, talk about diet and diuretics and all that, and keep them out of the hospital. With that, I'd say 95 to 97% of patients' needs are being met, even without hospital beds being available in that zip code. And going forward in time, insurance companies actually are driving and penalizing hospitals for readmitting a patient within 30 days of sending them out after COPD or pneumonia or some kind of hospitalization. So as they watch that, we will fix our processes. We are working to make sure the patients, when they go home, they stay healthy and do not come back. With the utilization going down, I would think that we would serve 95 to 97% of patients' needs. I don't see this as not meeting patients' needs in the elderly setting. I have patients who come in and are thankful. They have endocrinology, a surgeon. We used to have a plastic surgeon here as well. Many specialists who come down here, the radiation oncology team that travels from Rochester every day, to provide care that is close to home for our patients, that is high quality as well. When I receive brochures, jobs brochures from other sites, there are many small hospitals who have a skeleton crew of primary care and not much specialty backup. So I think I'm fortunate to practice in this area. I finished my training 10 years ago, and I haven't been happier. Joining Mayo Clinic Health System was the best thing I did. I moved from New Delhi, India, to be at Mayo Clinic because that's the best training. And then 6 years later, unbeknownst to me, I fell in love with the community when I walked in, saw a beautiful lake, a beautiful building, joined this place in 2009, and have never been happier about this. We are providing excellent care here with primary care, medical specialties, surgical backup, and our patients see that. I agree that the hospital beds are moving to a site that is 23 miles from here. But that is going to be a much smaller pie for the healthcare overall going forward in time.
Anything else?
Well, just one comment. You're hearing that. When are you going to shut down Austin? You should just go to Rochester. It's only 26, 27 miles. You don't have the babies be born over there because it's so hard to get doctors. This doesn't make sense that we see other hospitals so much closer. I mean, they're running full service hospitals. So, I'm asking, I always ask when I talk to Mayo people is that you consider getting creative and do something to have babies born in Freeborn County in elderly. I would like to see us go away from this today with a transportation commitment from Mayo, so our people here don't have transportation issues and costs, and solve that Medicare Part B for that. If we could get something in writing back to the board that said, yes, we will commit to that, and the mental health center. We could have 4 different, things committed from you, and we'll work on it. Are you willing to do that?
I think the mental health, we have the commitment, and we're working with the subcommittee on that. We're further investigating the non-patient ambulance transport. I think some work needs to be done before we can commit. That's a community, and it's more than just outwardly, it's outlying communities also. And then I think I forgot one.
The Medicare Part B, I think, is a Medicare requirement, and it's might even be illegal to write off the cost of the money that's owed to the patient for being outpatient, but I'm speaking online because I'm not the expert here.
Right.
So commitment on taking care of Medicare B, I don't think we can do that because there might be rules and regulations about that. Medicare wants patients who are outpatient to be treated a certain way, and there are strict guidelines as to what diagnostic codes were put in. Did the patient have certain blood tests? Did they meet certain thresholds? So that'd be a harder commitment to make, but for the other 3, we stand committed.
Good. That's great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you once again. So we'll move back and go back to your public comment if there is any. So we'll move back to item number 5, consideration of issues presented by persons of the general public and/or other general items. Is there anyone who wish to address the board?
Cheryl Smith. I'm a senior. But first off, on the birthing, I wouldn't have gotten to Austin. My babies were 18 minutes apart and 20 minutes apart. My first one was 3 hours. I had babies. The doctors, you know, and it is hard. I'd like to know what the figure is out of 300 births, how many need that extra special care? I haven't heard a count or how many. In my day, gee, all my friends have said, what happened? How come our births were so easy? We didn't ever have babies in incubators or anything. And if you do have one in distress, it isn't that far to get them to Rochester, where they got care for infants. Okay. I'm having friends that are waiting for an ambulance to take them to Austin. They've been to Austin, no bed there. So then they're transferred to Mankato. They've been all over. And then I've got the seniors that an older couple. One is in ICU. She has no way, or he has no way. They don't drive anymore. They have no way to be with that family. And family, my husband had the same doctor for 16 years. And that's unheard of now. And it's so sad because you get that relationship. They know you. They know your body. You don't have to re-explain everything every time. Anything else? Anybody got a question for me?
If you could write down your name and address,
Oh, I'm here.
since this is a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
If we could look into this before the workshop next week, the number of birds between the counties, I think that should be fairly easy information to find. If
Freeborn
it's-
and Monmouth County?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So please state your name and address and then write it.
My name is Barbara Callahan, I live at 608 South Washington. First of all, thank you. I think Mayo needs to be pushed to the back, and I think you guys did a good job. As far as the observational beds and the mental health, I would encourage you to have someone research that for reimbursement purposes. Because when I was in nursing, the reimbursement for observation and mental health was very poor. Other than that, I again just want to say thank you. Thank you for fighting and helping us keep what we need.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brad Ahrens. My wife and I and our family live at 217 South Lane here in Elder Lake. I am the current chair of Save Our Healthcare organization. And I'd like to just reiterate what Barb said in terms of a heartfelt thank you for, number one, hosting this today and having Mayo here, but secondly, asking them piercing questions. But I would also like to encourage you during this facilitated dialogue to bring one other aspect to bear in this conversation, and it's the aspect of cost. You know, not only is this an issue in elderly regarding access, but if you look at South Central and southeastern Minnesota, we have the highest health insurance rates in the state of Minnesota. And it's only because of one reason. It's not because we're less healthy. It's because we pay more. That the cost of services for routine services like x-rays and MRIs are sometimes 300 to 500% higher. And that leads to higher health insurance rates. And this is not just affecting Freeborn. This is affecting all of South Central and Southeastern Minnesota. We have employers in town that have already elected to not have mail in their network for their corporate health plan. And it has saved them somewhere between 25 and 30% in their health insurance premiums. And we have to bring this up today. I mean, Mayo has a good share of its revenue come from South Central and Southeastern Minnesota. And the fact that our costs are that much higher, it's great care. But kind of an x-ray is an x-ray, an MRI is an MRI. And this needs to be an issue that is brought up in this facilitated dialogue. Because it impacts every community in South Central and Southeastern Minnesota. Once again, thank you. Any other questions that you have?
Just a comment about it. This winter, I had a bypass surgery, and it was an emergency. I was in Cody, Wyoming, but I was transferred to Billings. And if I had it to do over, which I don't want to do over, but if I did, and there was a choice, the care and everything, I mean, I've always had good care with the Mayo facilities, but the expertise and the care and so on, I'd go to Billings again. And that's 100, they talk about not being able to recruit. They've got 4 on staff there. They've got 4 thoracic cardiac surgeons on hand at all times, in that facility. And there's another facility about the same size right next to it, which has the same. So I mean, that's a community of 100,000, and beyond that, there's not very many people. They got to come from a lot of miles. So that idea of not being able to recruit, I don't totally go on that. But, I mean, like I said, the cost, I think my cost out there was probably a half of what it would have been if I'd been here,
That hurts economic development.
Oh, it kills economic development.
I mean, we say high taxes, but maybe high healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, an employer has a choice of health insurance premiums being 25 to 30% less in Mason City versus elsewhere. If you take Mason City, it's kind of almost like a carbon copy of Elkwood. It really is centered on lakes. I mean, we have the same attributes here. Yet, if they were down there, their health insurance rates would be 25 to 30% less. And if you're an employer looking to locate another facility, a warehouse, something like that, we are at a competitive disadvantage. And this is something that is not new. I mean, this was the same, this was the same way 2 years ago, like a year ago, before this ever transpired. But it is coming to the forefront because of this conversation that we're having today. The care is great. It's wonderful. As a cancer survivor, I credit Mayo Clinic as to helping me be a survivor. But the cost of care is an issue. They made like $700 million last year. And yet our cost of care is so much higher than competitive in other areas in Minnesota. Any other questions that you have for me?